Jim, our next question via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent in by Jonathan Meisner. Why didn't Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden ever get a run with the Smoky Mountain tag titles?
Oh, God. Honestly, no other reason than it didn't come up before I had to finish them up. Because from fall 1992 until summer of 93, the tag team program, originally the Fantastics, Bobby and Jackie Fulton, were the first babyface opponents of the Heavenly Bodies. And then once we had run with them for the first several months we were on the air, then Ricky Morton had become available, already had Robert Gibson. I was able to reunite the Rock and Roll Express. And what I did was, whereas, as I remember it, the Fantastics had worked with Fuller and Golden to kind of get ready for the Heavenly Bodies. But meanwhile, when I got the Rock and Roll together, I gave them the opportunity to get a win over Fuller and Golden to get them ready for the Bodies. But then we added Dutch Mantell to the Fuller and Golden stud stable. And we established by the end of the year that the stud stable was kind of its own, because Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden were just funny as fuck together as heels, and just Fuller's promos, and then Dutch adding to it is kind of like play. He was still wrestling a bit at that time, but he could be the manager also. And again, Fuller and Golden, they were old Tennessee wrestling, old fashioned as fuck. But it worked in that atmosphere. But also I gave them the Black Crows, hard to handle. It was Otis Redding, right? The fucking remake. And here they come out with that big smile on their fucking faces. They're both 6'6", and Robert's dick is 6 feet long. And they know how to work, and they get the people involved in everything. So I had the Rock and Roll Express, who were straight baby faces, the Heavenly Bodies, and then added Bobby Eaton for that time that we were just talking about, 3-month period there, where we're straight heels, and 3 members of the stud stable that could do, either way. And we did the Rage in the Cage, where they were against us, and then they flipped on the other baby faces and gave us the keys and left and all that shit. So the only reason they didn't end up with tag belts was right about the time that I was finishing up the program between the Rock and Roll and Heavenly Bodies, and Stan decided to retire, and I was bringing Jimmy Del Rey in to replace him, was when they called first, I think, for Robert Fuller. They called him and wanted him to go to WCW as Robert Parker, Colonel Robert Parker, the manager. So
did that surprise you?
Yeah, believe it or not, yes. I mean, in a business where very little surprise, Robert Fuller had never been a manager before, ever. And I mean, he had been wrestling since Continental had closed up a few years before. He wrestled some independent shows down south, but wasn't really, I didn't think, on a national promotions radar.
South
and somebody
Atlantic.
had
Remember, I think he took over for Booker after George Scott, didn't he?
That's right. And he had the stud stable, but he was still, wrestling, doing whatever. But I didn't think WCW was all of a sudden going to bring in Robert Fuller, and especially to be the world's only 6'7" manager or whatever. But he was hilarious doing it. And he called and let me know. I said, well, Robert, I can't pay you what they're going to pay you, so good luck. And then, of course, as soon as you get, one, there Jimmy Golden becomes Bunkhouse Buck. And I think Jimmy Golden, again, was not on the radar to be booked by any of the national television promotions in 1993, but it happened. So that's the timing was the only thing. I loved the fucking gimmick. And one of the greatest line I've ever heard, when we did our first Smoky Mountain Wrestling taping, because I got Jimmy, first thing, he lived there in town. Robert was still working for Ron part-time at his hockey team.
Which town did Jimmy live in?
Well, a suburb of Knoxville. Whereas Robert was working because Ron still owned a hockey team in Cincinnati, and Robert was working for him part-time. So he was back and forth. But Jimmy, we had on the very first TV, point being, we're sitting in a locker room. I can't remember who the job guy was, but I said, Jimmy, what do you want to do for a finish? He just said, I throw a pretty good drop kick. I went, okay, there's your finish. Hit him with a drop kick when it's time, right? God damn, he hit him with a drop kick. I didn't think he was going to fucking wake up the guy when he knocked him into a next area code. I said, that's your goddamn finish from now on. And if you're not fucking somebody, you're beating him with a fucking drop kick. Because he was 50 years old at that point, I think. Well, no, I'm telling a lie. Because everybody was older than me at that time, even still. But in 1992...
He was born in 1950.
Okay, he was 42 years old. He jumped up with those long legs, hit this fucking kid, and knocked him ass over tea kettle. I said, that's fine. That's the most believable finish we had here tonight.